Okay, and I'm gonna start sharing my screen now. So let me know when you can see it. Can you see my screen, David?
No.
Not yet. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So you can see like a little turtle and stuff?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, cool. So this is the project we'll be making this lesson or today. So we'll make it on our own computers. This is on Trinket, but what it is it's called interactive turtle. So we can control where we draw the line. So for example, down here, it's asking us how far will Bob walk. So we can put in a number like 100 maybe, and then it drew a line. And now we can tell it how many degrees to turn. So I might say 90. And then you can keep going. And then you can make whatever shapes you want.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, so that's just me typing it. So I can even like turn a random amount of degrees, like 48, and then like walk 30. So like you don't have to make neat shapes, but it's just an interactive turtle where it takes what you typed in and draws it.
Yeah, and how do you do it?
Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do this lesson.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I'll go through it step by step. So make sure to get idle open. So let me know when you have idle open.
Yeah, I'm already in.
You have it? Okay, cool. And then what we want to do is we want to make a new file. So do you remember
Yeah,
how
I
to
did.
do that? Yep. Okay, cool. File, new file. So I'll quickly do that. Now before we start, I'll just close that. If we go back to our project, so we need to break it down so that it's easy for us to code. So what are the different steps that happen? So just like when you talk, like what do you see? What are the, like different things that's happening with this program? So what's one thing that's happening? So as soon as you press like play, what's the first thing it asks you?
How far will Bob?
Yep.
Wait, I didn't get that at all. I didn't get that.
Oh
yeah.
no, we haven't started anything yet. So I'm just explaining.
Yeah.
We're looking at the project and we're just trying to break it down so that it's easy for us to start coding it.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
break it down.
how far will Bob walk?
Yep.
Yeah.
So then that's one step, and then we can put in a number. So just 30. And then what's another step that's happening?
How many degrees should Bob turn?
Yep. And then again, we put in another number, and then it turns. And then what happens again? Like, does it just finish, or is it continuing?
It's continuing.
Yep, exactly. So you can just keep continuing typing stuff. So it keeps going. How far will it walk and how many degrees? So some of the basic steps are when we start, we like set up our turtle, then it asks us for some input. So how far will Bob walk? And then it walks that far. And then it asks us for the degrees. So how many degrees to turn, and then it turns, and then it keeps repeating that. So I'll get my file open again. So do you remember the first thing you need to type when you're making a turtle project or when you need to use turtle?
Yeah, import turtle.
Yep, good job. So remember, import turtle with the lowercase t. And then we need to set up our actual turtle, like the thing that's moving around. So do you remember how to do that as well?
No.
No, that's okay.
Not really.
That's okay. So it's a bit like a variable because we want to give our turtle a name. So I might call mine Bob. you can call yours whatever you want. I'm going to say Bob. And because it's a variable, we can say equals. And we want to make Bob into a turtle. So to do that, you say
Yep.
turtle.
Wait, can I type some other name?
Yeah, you can type another name. That's fine.
Okay.
Chester, can you hear me? No, not yet connected, I think. Okay, so David, you go turtle dot, and then you type turtle with a capital T, and you have 2 brackets. So do you remember why we did that?
No,
Why
I forgot.
that? Okay, so the first thing importing turtle is because turtle is a library from somewhere else. So that's like some code that someone else has written and we're using it. So to be able to use it, we have to actually import it. And now to actually like create a turtle object, we give it a name and we say it equals a turtle. So we go lowercase turtle dot, because that's saying it's from this turtle library. So we're saying lowercase turtle dot, and then turtle with a capital T. That function means it's making a turtle.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, does that make sense? Kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So what you can do now is do you remember how we changed the shape of the turtle last week?
No. Everything from the last lesson is kind of unclear to me.
Oh, unclear. Okay. Okay. Well, this will be a good revision then for you. So we want to change the shape of the turtle to be like a little turtle shape like you see in the project I showed you. So to do that, we gave our turtle a name. So my one's called Bob. So I'm going to go Bob dot shape and then bracket. And inside the bracket a quotation mark, and I want it to be the shape of a turtle. So turtle, and then close the quotation mark and close the bracket.
Yep.
So what
I'm doing that right now.
Okay, cool. So what that does is we have to go bob dot something so that it knows we're changing the shape of our turtle that we made. And then we put the word turtle in quotation marks because it's a string. So string is like a word.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yep, you're done? Okay. So I'll get you to run it first now and just save it and choose, remember where you
Wait, save it first?
Yeah, so when you press run, it will ask you to save it. So just choose where to save it. Chester, can you hear me? Okay. I'm not sure if Chester can hear me. So remember how you made that folder last week? Chester, can you hear me? Hi.
So this is a turtle.
Yes. Yeah. So this is called interactive turtle.
Yeah, so do I just close it after I've looked at it?
Yep. So did it draw the little turtle?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool. Yep. Now you just close it. So Chester, we're making a project called Interactive Turtle. So it's like the one that I showed you in an yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, so we're making a project we just started, a project called Interactive Turtle. And it's like what I showed you in the first week. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep, so it's this thing. So it asks how far will Bob walk, and you can say a number. Hang on, I didn't press play. You can say a number, and then it asks how far will Bob turn, and you can say another number, and then you can keep going. So you can draw your own shapes, kind of.
Yeah.
So we just started, if you can see my screen, and just quickly try add in those first 3 lines. So we just created our turtle. Those were the first 3 steps. Yep.
So should I put a new file?
Oh yeah, yeah. So in a new file.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Those things.
Yep. And David, while you're waiting, what we can do is we can change the color of our pen if we want. So I
Yeah.
went
And how do you
over-
do that?
Yep. So it's just the same as like how we change the shape. So we have to go bob dot, but instead we can type in color, COLOR. So you have to spell it the American way because that's just how Python does it. And then you can put in a color. So I might want to change mine to green. So you need the brackets and then the quotation marks again, and inside that you type the word green or whatever color you want to change it to. So Python,
Okay.
just like with the shape, Python, like Turtle has a few set shapes and set colors that you can use. So sometimes it might not have every single color or every single shape. Like if you wanted a shape of a stapler or something, it might not have that shape. So you have to, if you want to see what shapes or colors they have, you can just Google. So you can type in Python Turtle, and then if we want to see what colors there are, we can type in colors.
Yeah, I want to see. No. Can I see the shape?
The shape.
Like, can we change it to
So you
a
can,
triangle?
yeah. So you can try that, but I'll let you also go on onto Google and search it up just so you can see it for yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it.
There. Now run.
Did that work?
Okay, it says I can change it to that shape. So there's no rectangle.
There's no rectangle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, is that?
What did it say, sorry?
It said like unable to get that shape.
Okay. So, yeah, I'll let you go on to Google quickly and try look for it. So type in something like Python turtle shapes, and it should be that first result. Sorry. So Chester, how are you going with your?
Oh yes, it did it.
It did it?
I have a purple triangle.
Okay, cool. Nice
I
work.
just did what you said to write on your code.
Okay. Yep, like those 3 lines, and then I was just showing David how to change the shape and color of the turtle while we're waiting. But I'll move on to the next step now. Does everything so far make sense to you guys?
Yeah. So
Yep.
how do you get onto the interactive turtle?
Interactive. So that's what we're making right now. So we have to, oh yeah, I was explaining to David, so we have to break it up into steps. So the first step, like we created our turtle. Now, David, do you remember the next step?
No.
No?
Yeah, I didn't remember anything from the last lesson, so I'm gonna just.
It's not from last lesson, what I was saying at the beginning, but that's okay. So if I open up the project, we've created our turtle, and now what it does is it asks us, how far will Bob walk? So that's what we need to do now. We need to get it to ask us, how far will Bob walk?
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
how do we do that?
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to explain now. So before doing that, so do you remember how in this project you can just keep typing stuff? It's just continuous. So it keeps going on forever. It's doing that because it's in something called a loop. So if you remember, we did something called using for loops last lesson. If you don't, that's okay. But do you remember the term loops, David or Chester?
No, I remember it, but I was trying to practice it but I forgot how to type it.
You forgot how to type it? Okay, that's okay. We're doing a different kind of loop today, but the loop we're doing today is called a while loop. So what a while loop does is you can continue doing something until a certain condition is met. So when we did for loops last week, we could just repeat something a certain number of times. So last week we did for loops, and like, for example, when we were drawing our square, we wanted to repeat it 4 times. So we used that thing called range. But this week we want to repeat something to keep going forever. So what we need to type is the word while and lowercase. So type in the word while because we're using a while loop.
Yep.
And then the word true with a capital T. So T-R-U-E.
Did it?
Did it? Okay, cool. So Chester, did you do that as well? Did you type in the word while and true? I think he's still typing. Okay, so the reason why we say the word true is because, yep, you got it? Okay, cool. So the reason the word true here with a capital T is something called a Boolean. So it pretty much means something is true. And because we're using a while loop, that kind of takes some sort of condition to keep repeating something. The condition we said here was true. So like true is always going to be true. So that means that like it's just going to keep happening forever. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now if you remember from last week, when we did loops, we have to use indentation and we also have to use the semicolon. So we type in while true and then the semicolon, or the colon, sorry. And then if you press enter, it should be, the next line you write should be a bit indented in.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's good. We want it to be indented so that our code knows anything that's indented is part of that loop. So Chester,
Yeah,
do you have that as well?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, so now what we want to do, so we have our loop set up. Now we actually want to ask the user a question. So do you remember, you might not, it's okay if you don't, but do you remember how you get an input, or like you ask the person a question? Like, do you remember how you get a value from on Python by asking the user a question? So I think we did it in the first lesson where we asked, what is your name? The first or second lesson. Does anyone remember?
Yeah.
No.
No, that's okay. So we use something called input. So if you type in the word I-N-P-U-T, so input is a bit like print, but print just writes down like a sentence or whatever word you say on the screen. This writes down a sentence and then waits, like there's a space so that someone can type something afterwards. So we want to say input, how far will Bob travel? Or whatever you called your turtle.
I can remember.
So that's the first question our program asked, because if you remember in the example one, it said, how far will Bob travel? So remember to type in input and then have brackets. And then inside the brackets, quotation marks that say with the phrase saying, how far will Bob travel? And then close the brackets. Does everyone have that?
I'm just typing.
You're just typing? Okay, that's okay. Also, you don't have to use this exact phrase. You can say something else, just as long as it makes sense that you're asking how far will your turtle travel. So David, do you have that line of code?
Yep, just finished it.
Yep, okay, cool.
Finished it too.
You finish it too? Okay, cool. So now I'll just get everyone to run what they have so far, just to test what happens and if it works like we expect it to. So we want it to ask us how far will Bob, or whatever name you gave your turtle, travel. So it'll ask the question in the Python shell. And then you should still be able to just see the turtle there, but it shouldn't do anything yet. And then if you type something after the how far will Bob travel, like if you just type in anything, it will just keep asking you the question. Because we put in a loop, it will keep asking it from us forever. So everyone test it and see if that works for you guys too.
Yep.
Yep.
Testing it. How far will Bob travel? 1,000. No, 1,000. Enter.
So Bob shouldn't move yet, or your turtle won't move yet because we haven't coded it to do that. But if you just go into shell and where the question is, you can keep answering the question.
Yeah, and how does it move? I don't see it moving.
Because we haven't added the code to make it move yet. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just wrote 1,000 to ones.
1,000. Yeah, so if you press enter, it should ask you again. So just press enter and see if it asks you again.
I was typing random.
Pardon?
I was typing letters.
You're just typing, yeah, so you can type in letters as well because it doesn't know what, like it doesn't know what it's expecting us to type in.
Yeah, that's really.
Yeah, as long as it just keeps asking you the question as you press enter, you know that it's working. You know that our while loop is working. So that means it will do it forever. So does everyone have that working?
Yeah.
Yep.
And does it, sorry, what did you say, Chester?
I'm just holding down the enter button.
Oh, right. Yeah, it works too if you just press enter. Yeah, so does that make sense how the while loop and the question is working? The input thing?
Yeah.
Yep. David, does that make sense to you as well?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So we'll go back to our program. So we'll close the shell and then we'll go back to our program. So what we want to do is we ask the person how far we want Bob to travel. Oh, sorry, Chester, did you say something?
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Nope.
Nope? Okay. So, yeah. What we did is we asked our user, whoever's running our program, how far we want Bob to travel, but we actually want to be use whatever value they gave us to make our Bob or whatever our turtle is move. So we need to save this answer somewhere, because if we just ask them, we've asked them, but we're not saving the value anywhere. So like our program won't remember what number we typed in. So who remembers a way of how we can save values in something? Does anyone know? So do you remember how I explained something as like a little box that remembers a value? What is that? It's called, do you guys remember what variables are?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's a variable?
It's like something that you can you, say you can do like I equals like something
Yeah, so yeah.
word like a sentence or something or a number.
Yep, so variable is something where you can go like something equals something, but what we use variables for is to remember stuff or like to store values in something. So for example, in a game, you might have a variable called score, and you'll say score is equal to 0, and then later on in that game you can change the score. So in our case, we want to save.
I remember doing that from last year.
Pardon?
With like coding at school.
Oh, you learned that last year?
Like,
yeah.
Technology last year.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to make a variable that remembers the distance that somebody typed in. Because in this program, it asks, how far will Bob walk? So we need to remember that value so that we can use it later to actually make Bob walk. So to do that, we can type in the word distance. So distance equals. So type that in before input. So what that is doing is distance is the name of our variable. And we're saying distance equals whatever our person typed in after this question. So David, does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Well, yep. Okay. So you can use any word. It doesn't have to be distance, but you need to use something meaningful. So something you know what
Yeah,
it
I
means.
used distance.
Yeah. So distance usually makes sense because we want to use it to say how far our turtle will walk, but you could use like steps or something like that as well. But I'm just going to stick with distance for now. So does everyone have that?
Yep.
Fine. Yep. Chester?
Doing it.
Doing it? Okay, cool. And just remember, with this input thing, whatever the user types in afterwards will be saved as a string. So what we're doing is we're saving whatever they typed after this question into a variable called distance as a string. So once you've typed that, just press enter so you're on the next line, but make sure you're still indented in, because now we actually want to use that number or that value distance to make our turtle move. So we just want to make it go forward however many times, like whatever number the user typed in times. So how might we do that? Does anyone have an idea?
I know, I think.
Yeah.
How far will Bob how long will Bob move? Or something like that.
So
Will Bob move?
Before asking a question, we actually want to make Bob move forward, like however many times the person said it. So if you look on my screen in the example program again, it asks how far will Bob walk? So that's the first step that we did. That's the input thing. And then once you type in a number, so if I type in 50, it actually moves. So that's the next step we're trying to do now. So we asked the user how far will Bob walk? And now we saved whatever they typed in something called a variable, which is called distance. And now we want to actually make our turtle move. So how do we make something move in turtle? So if we just want to go forward, what do we type in?
Forward.
Yep, exactly. So we'll go bob.forward, just so that we know we're moving Bob forward. But inside the brackets, we have to put in a number, or we have to put in a value. So what value do we put in? Does anyone know?
I think any value.
Any value. So the value we want is whatever the person typed in.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
how do we do that?
So do you have an idea? So we saved whatever the person typed in as something called distance. So what do you think we'll put inside the brackets?
I think you
Sorry, Chester, I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I think you would put inside the brackets distance.
Yep, exactly. So we put in the word distance inside the brackets. So what that's saying is we want Bob to move forward this much time. So distance times. And distance is whatever we typed in. So I'll get you guys to run it and see what happens. But you might get an error, and I'll explain it to you after, but I just want you to run it first to see what happens.
So run.
Yep, so run, and then when it asks you how far will Bob travel, just put in a number.
I'm just saving it
Okay,
right now.
so I got an error, and you guys should get an error too.
And if you will not?
If you don't get an error, then it might be surprising.
Oh yeah, I have an error too.
Yeah, so it's meant to give you an error because I'll explain it to you after. We forgot to do something. So Chester, did you run yours and see as well?
Yeah.
Yep, do you get an error as well?
Well, it didn't give me the option to like say. It didn't say how Bob traveled. It just gave me an error.
Oh, it just gave you an error straight away. Okay.
Yeah.
You might have something in your code before that causes an error, but I'll first explain this error, and then when I go back to my code, you can see if yours looks like mine. There might just be something where it might be something when you did like distance equals that, but the error we're getting here, if you look on my screen, is it's saying, well, it's a big error, but it's pretty much saying can't multiply sequence by non-int of type float. That's a bit confusing, but what in this case, what it's saying is, because it's telling us the error is in line 10, where it says bob.forward distance. So if we go back into our code, do you remember how I said just a few minutes ago, input saves whatever the user typed in as a string?
Yep.
Yep. But in this function here, where we say bob.forward distance, it's expecting a number because it's expecting us to put in a number like 10 or 20 or something like that. So even though in our program, even though we typed in a number, in the background, like it saved it as a string. So instead of saving it as the number 80, when I typed in 80, it saved it as 80 in quotation marks. So what we need to do is we need to actually convert this. So we need to convert the variable distance into an integer. So an integer is a number. An integer, an integer is just another word for number in programming languages. So to convert it, you just type in the word int in front of the word distance in your bob.forward thing.
Yep.
And then you put brackets around the word distance. So just check that yours looks like my code. So the letters int is short for integer.
Yeah.
So it's just saying to convert distance, that's a string, into an integer. And then, did it work for you, Chester?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so yeah, David, run yours as well.
Travel. Should I
Yep.
type
Okay. Run.
What did you say,
Run,
Chester?
run,
Sorry,
run.
I can't hear you.
a number?
Yep, so type in a number now and see what happens. Now your turtle should move, hopefully.
Yes, it did.
Yep, it did? Cool. Chester, did yours move?
No.
No?
Okay.
Did you get an error? What does your error say? So, did it look like the one I had before?
Yeah.
Yeah?
The got float.
It got, not flow. So, in your
Yeah.
code, do you have this bit where you convert it to an int, so int distance in brackets? Sorry, I didn't hear you, Chester. Did you? Okay, so just add that in now. So the int and then in brackets distance is just converting that variable, which right now is a string, into a number. So like if you type in a number in the background, it will just change it to an actual number value in our code so that this bob.forward function can actually work.
Okay, just saving it.
Yep, so save it.
Wait, I didn't even save it.
I think so. Once you saved it, like in the first time, it saves it automatically. And because we have it in our while loop, so David as well, because you have yours in a while loop, you can keep
Yeah.
drawing lines. So like every time it asks you, you can just type in like 1, and then it can move, or like 10, and you can keep drawing lines. So is everyone's working now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So it's pretty cool, right? And then you can just say how far it will go. So now we'll do the next step, which is actually making it turn. So what's the first thing we need to make it turn? So it's almost like what we did up here, but instead, if you look at the example project, it says something else. It says how many degrees should Bob turn? So how do we type that bit of coding? Can someone tell me?
Bob.
So before,
Oh no, wait.
before,
Alright.
yeah.
Distance.
Not a, so yes, but instead we want to make a new variable. So distance is what we use like for the question, how far will Bob travel? But we want to make a new variable so that we know how like far Bob will turn. So what we could call it is something like angle equals. So we're making a new variable now that remembers the angle that somebody typed in. So what do I need to type in next? Angle equal. Yep, exactly. Input. And then,
Like,
sorry, what did you say?
so then you could type in brackets and quotation marks. What angle will Bob travel?
Yep, yeah, or turn. But yep, so you can type in something like, what angle will Bob turn? So David, did you get all of that as well?
I'm trying right now.
You're trying right now? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what it's doing is it's pretty much the same thing as what we typed before, but it's just asking a different question and saving it in a different variable name.
Okay. Got that now?
You got that? So
I got it.
you got it? Okay, so now we actually want to use this variable to make our turtle turn, or to make Bob turn. So what, does anyone know what line of code we might use? Or the beginning of the line? So, yep. Yep, so we go Bob dot, and then we can type in left, so that we're turning to the left so many degrees. And then what do we need to type inside the brackets?
What we did with that one that we did with forward?
Yep, exactly. So we need to do the same thing we did with forward by first changing it to an integer, so int, and then we need brackets again. And inside the second set of brackets, we want to type in the word angle. So what we're telling our program is for Bob to turn so many degrees based on whatever we typed in first. And we write the word int to convert what we typed in to a number.
Yep.
Yep. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. Yes. If you have a question, you can ask. Or if it doesn't make complete sense, let me know. But if it's all okay, we can run module, and then see what happens. So you should be able to now continuously say how far to walk and what angle to turn.
Okay. How far will Bob travel? 10. What angle?
And then
What angle will Ford? I have an error.
you have an error? What's the error saying?
Trace back most recent call last. File C user fly app data located blah 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 blah. Module Bob left angle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that.
Does it say like invalid literal or something for base 10?
It says invalid.
Yep. So I think what you might have done is, what was the last thing you typed in? Was it a number or was it a letter?
It was it was a letter.
It was a letter? Yeah. So that's what the error is, because it's trying to convert whatever we typed in. So it's trying to convert like the letter you typed in into a number, but the program can't convert like the letter A into a number. Like it can't convert A in quotation marks into a number. Like before, when you typed it, like if you typed in 50, it can convert 50 from quotation marks into a number, but because it's a letter, it can't do that. Yeah. So we can actually add something in our program to check if what the person typed in was a letter or number. Do you guys want to do that? Because we have 10 minutes left. So we can check like if whatever somebody typed in was actually a number. So do you guys want to do that?
I just
Yeah.
Yep.
like
Okay.
sticking out of it.
What did you say, Chester? Sorry?
I kind of do like a golf club. It's round and
Looks like a golf club.
kind of with like a star on the end.
Ah, that's funny. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to check whatever the person typed in is a number. So in Python, there is a way to do that. Let me try find it. Or we can put a limit on. Actually, no. Let me try find it. So check it Python. Give me a second. Okay, so do you remember how I was talking about if? I think we used it, things called if statements. We used it a couple of lessons ago. So we can use if statements to check if something is true or false. And if it is, then we can do something inside that if statement. So what we want to do is we want to check if whatever they typed in is a number. If it is, we'll make Bob go forward. And if it's not, we'll give them an error message. So let me just get the code up. Okay. So this is a bit different. So there's something called, hang on. Let me try find the easier way to do it without confusing you guys. What we can say is there's something called pass int, I'm pretty sure. So let me get it up so that I know exactly what to show you. Because in Python, you have to check if it is a number, and if it isn't, you want to do something else. So let me get it. Or otherwise what you can do is, I'll do it this way. Okay, I'll show you guys. So there's something called if statements, where you can check if something is true, we want to do something else. But in Python, there's also something called try catch statements. So what try catch statements do is they're a bit like if statements. So you tell it to try a bit of code, and the catch thing is if there's an error, you want to do something else, or you want to say something else. So I'll type it in for you. So we got to type in the word try, and then do the colon, and press enter. So you want to say try, and we want to try make Bob go forward. So I'm just gonna take this out of here and put it in the try thing. So I just press Control X on my keyboard to cut it, and I pasted it in here. So let me know when you have done that step.
Yeah.
Yep, you've done that. Cool. So that step is first saying, okay, after we've asked them for the input and saved it, we want to try and make Bob go forward. That's that step. And then the next thing we want to say is, so instead of catch, we're going to say accept instead. So accept, type in the word accept. And we want to say value error. Actually, before that, I'm just going to quickly find out. So what we're saying here, what we need to find out is what type of error our code will get if we don't type in a word. So just look on my screen for the minute. I'm just commenting some stuff out just to test something. So I just want to see what type of error it will tell me. So if I press space. Okay, yeah. So it says, do you see how, if everyone's looking at my screen, it asked me how far will Bob travel, and I just typed in space and pressed enter, and then I got something called a value error, because it's expecting something that's a number, but it's actually something else. Does that make sense so far? Yep.
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, so I'll show you why I did that. So what I want to do is, we want to try make Bob go forward, but if it doesn't work, so if it doesn't work, we want to say try do that, but the accept thing means accept if we get a value error. So the value error, did you see how when I tested my program before, we got something called a value error?
Yeah.
So what we're telling our code here is we want to make Bob go forward, but if we get a value error, we want to do something else. So make sure to put that colon there and press enter. And now in this line, we can tell it what else to do instead of making Bob go forward. So what I might do is I might say print, and I might say, sorry, that is not a valid number.
Okay.
So it's kind of like saying an error message. So I'll quickly explain it again. So once we've asked the user for the input, like we've saved whatever they typed in, we want to try and make Bob go forward. So if they type in a number and it's fine, then Bob will go forward and there's no issues. But if, like, say you accidentally typed a space and tried to make Bob go forward, it wouldn't work because it can't convert a space into a number. So that's why we're saying if it gets that error, so that type of error is called a value error, we want to tell the person, sorry, that's not a valid number. And then we want to make them, we want to ask them again, how far will Bob travel? And then you can make Bob go forward again if you want. So before doing that, we'll just do the sorry, that's not a valid number thing and see what happens, okay? So if you press run and run module, we'll try test it and see what happens. So first just test it normally by typing in a number like 10 and see if it moved. And then make sure to do the angle. And now if you type in like a letter, it gives you the error message. So did that work for everyone else?
Yep.
Yep. Does that kind of make sense? So it was a bit confusing because it's like a new concept, but did it make sense how it worked? Yes or no? Or kind of? So David, did it make sense to you?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Chester, did it make sense to you? What we did with that try and accept thing? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. So what we can do is you can add it for the angle as well. You can do the same code. So what you can do is you can just copy this line of that bunch of code, the try accept, and underneath angle, you can paste it. Make sure that it's still all indented nicely. And then instead of in the bit you copied, instead of doing the bob dot forward, you can, so I'm just pressing Control C to copy and Control V to paste, and then Control X to cut, and then Control V to paste. So I'll just add some spaces so you can see what's happening. So what we're doing is just doing the same thing, but for the angle this time. So we ask the person what angle do they want Bob to turn. If it's a number, then it will turn that angle. And if it's not, then it'll say, sorry, that's not a valid number. So it's like a little error message. So you know how when we did it, we got an error message, but it was like the error message in red, so it was a bit confusing. This is us actually typing in our own error messages in the program. So what it does is it allows you to still run the program, but it just tells the person of the error message. So did everyone copy and paste it? Did it work for you, Chester?
I just finally figured it out because it wasn't letting me.
Oh no, what happened?
Yay!
That's good. So now make sure, so make sure if you haven't tested it already, to test it and see that both work, the angle and the distance. So how far will Bob travel? 100. What angle will Bob turn? Okay. Sorry, that's not a valid number. Yep, so my one works. Does everyone else's work?
Yep.
Yep, cool.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work? What is yours saying? Okay, do you want to, I'll maybe get you to share your screen just so I can see what it is. I'll stop sharing mine. Also, it's 5:30 now, so I'll quickly help Chester fix his. But David, did yours work okay and everything?
Yes.
Yeah, did you have any questions?
No, it was all clear.
It was all clear? Okay, that's good.
Yes.
So if you want, you can leave, or you can just quickly see what the issue is with Chester's as well if you wanted to just see what it was before leaving. So I'll just quickly see. So Chester, if you just run your program.
Give me that, then.
How far will Bob travel? Ah, okay, so I see what the error is. So do you see how it says something called name error? The name distance is not defined. You just forgot the letter E, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so you just misspelled distance. So just add in the E. Yeah. So a name error means there's something wrong with the a name of your variable generally. It usually means it can't find the variable. And also Chester, okay, I'll let you run it first.
Yay!
Yay, cool. And one more thing, so Chester, if you go back to your code, you actually, I think you ask, yeah, so you make Bob move forward twice, because do you see how you have it straight after the first thing? And then you have it in that try except function. So get rid of it underneath the distance equals thing. Not that line, the line underneath. So just, yeah, just that line. Because otherwise you're just repeating it twice and then it's moving double. So you can just press backspace. But yeah, other than that, did anyone have any other questions?
No.
No? Okay, so then that's the end of the lesson. I'll see you guys next week then.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.